Like, share and subscribe. Understanding the 1040 series. This is part 1 of the series covering the first section of the 1040. Each section on the 1040 tax form is important. I will be explaining what the section is for, and why it is so important. I will be covering the first section in this video. First section on the 1040 tax form is the filing status and knowing how to select what filing status is right for you. The following are the filing statuses: single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, or the acronym, MFS, head of household, or HOH, and qualifying surviving spouse, or QSS. When filing single status. You are single if you were never married. You can claim single if you were legally separated according to your state law under a decree of divorce or separate maintenance. But if, at the end of that tax year, if your divorce wasn't final, an interlocutory decree, you are considered married. You can claim single if you were widowed with no dependent children before the beginning of that current year, and didn't remarry before the end of that current year. Example, if you and your spouse filed married filing jointly in 2022 for the tax year 2021, and your spouse died in 2022, you may still file married filing jointly for tax year 2022. If you did not have any dependent children and you did not remarry before the end of 2022, you will have to file single for the tax year 2023. When filing married filing jointly. A married couple filing jointly report their combined income and deduct their combined allowable expenses on one return. They can file a joint return, even if only one had income, or if they didn't live together all year. However, both persons must sign the return. Once you file a joint return, you can't choose to file separate returns for that year after the due date of the return. You can file a married filing jointly if you were married at the end of that tax year, even if you didn't live with your spouse during that tax year. You can file married filing jointly if you were married at the end of that tax year and your spouse died before filing that current tax year return. If you are a non-resident alien and dual status alien. Generally, a married couple can't file a joint return if either spouse is a non-resident alien at any time during the year. If you are a non-resident alien and dual status alien, and were married to a U.S. citizen or resident alien at the end of the tax year, you can elect to be treated as a resident alien and file a joint return. When filing married filing separately. If you are filing married filing separately, the spouse's date of birth and social security number or individual taxpayer identification number, ITIN, is needed to prepare the return. File with spouse's name or enter non-resident alien NRA in the spouse information section if the spouse doesn't have a social security number or individual tax identification number. When filing married filing separately, you will usually pay more tax than if you use another filing status for which you qualify. Also, if you file a separate return, you can't take the student loan interest deduction or the education credits. And you will only be able to take the earned income credit and child and dependent care credit in very limited circumstances. You also can't take the standard deduction if your spouse itemizes deductions. When filing head of household. If you are married, you can file head of household if you have a dependent and if you were legally separated according to your state law under a decree of divorce or separate maintenance at the end of the tax year. If you are married, you can file head of household if you have a dependent and if you are married but lived apart from your spouse for the last 6 months of the tax year and you meet the other rules under married persons who live apart. If you are married, you can file head of household if you have a dependent and if you lived apart for 6 months, file a separate return from your spouse, and paid over half of the upkeep of your home. If you are married, you can file head of household if you have a dependent and if your spouse was a non-resident alien at any time during the year and the election to treat the alien spouse as a resident alien is not made. You can file head of household if you paid over half the cost of keeping up your main home all of the tax year and you have claimed your parent that does not live with you that is accepted under a multiple support agreement. You can file head of household if you paid over half the cost of keeping up a home in which you lived in for more than half of the year with a qualifying child or dependent. When filing qualifying surviving spouse. You can file qualifying surviving spouse if you have a qualifying child dependent and if your spouse died and you didn't remarry before the end of that year of death. You can file the status of qualifying surviving spouse 2 tax years following your spouse's death if you haven't remarried. You can file qualifying surviving spouse if you have a qualifying child dependent and if you paid over half the cost of keeping up your home. When changing your name. If you changed your name because of marriage or divorce, be sure to report the change to the Social Security Administration before filing your return. This prevents delays in processing your return and issuing refunds. It also safeguards your future Social Security benefits. An incorrect or missing Social Security numbers and an incorrect missing date of birth when filing electronically can increase your tax, reduce your refund, or delay your refund. When changing your address. If you plan to move after filing your return, use Form 8822 to notify the IRS of your new address. Enter your P.O. Box number only if your post office doesn't deliver mail to your home. If you are using a foreign address, don't abbreviate the country name. Follow the country's practice for entering the postal code and the name of the province, county, or state. This is the end of Section 1 of Understanding the 1040 series. Go to the next video for Section 2. For us to continue to give you this valuable content, please like, share, and subscribe.